I always thought family meant protection. That blood guaranteed loyalty. That the people closest to you wouldn't steal the ground from under your feet. But I was wrong. My name is Anna Rivers, and I discovered one quiet Tuesday morning that someone I trusted more than anyone in the world had quietly erased the foundation of my life. It started when I went to my bank to check an account I had barely touched in years. A small inheritance my grandmother had left me. Something I'd been saving for emergencies, for dreams, for freedom. I never imagined it would become the source of betrayal. The teller smiled at me politely, then frowned and turned the screen toward me. My balance wasn't just low. It wasn't a small discrepancy. It was zero. Every cent gone. And right there, in digital ink, was my name, but the signature wasn't mine. I didn't shout. I didn't call anyone. I just sat in the chair for a long moment staring. And then I knew. I didn't need proof. I didn't need confirmation. My brother Matthew had stolen it. He had forged my signature, emptied the account, and built his life on my future. Every plan I had made, the apartment I wanted to move into, the car I wanted to buy, the life I wanted to start, was now being funded by my own disappearance from my own inheritance. I walked out of the bank without a word, my stomach tight, my chest heavy, my mind racing. But I didn't panic. I couldn't. Panic never fixed anything. I had spent my life being the quiet one, the fixer, the one who absorbed chaos and reorganized it. And in that moment I realized that skill wasn't gone, it was my weapon. Back at my apartment, I turned the living room into a war room. My laptop was open. Folders were spread across the floor. Not just digital files, but every piece of correspondence I could find, every bank statement, every casual email Matthew had sent about finances, every document related to the inheritance. Every single detail became a thread I could pull to unravel the truth. I didn't call him. I didn't confront him. I didn't speak to anyone. I let the anger simmer. I let it organize itself into something deliberate, something precise. Every transfer, every forged signature, every silent betrayal was being logged, documented, and archived. I wasn't moving yet. I was preparing. I started mapping his moves, the accounts he had touched, the money he had transferred to his name, the small investments he had made using my inheritance, thinking they would go unnoticed. He had rented an apartment, bought a car, paid for trips, all funded with my money, all under the illusion that I wouldn't notice. And I did notice. Every single transaction became a puzzle piece. And slowly, methodically, I began to see the bigger picture of what he had done. By the end of the first week, I had reconstructed the entire chain of theft. Every email, every bank statement, every casual boast he had made about his luck was there, documented, categorized, and verified. It wasn't just proof. It was power. For years I had been absorbing the family's chaos, quiet, unnoticed. Now that same quiet gave me control. Every lie he had told, every small manipulation, every assumption that I would stay silent, it all became leverage. I called Julia, my friend from law school, who specialized in estate and fraud cases. I explained what had happened in a calm voice, without breaking, without crying, without emotion. She didn't interrupt. She listened, taking notes, letting me narrate the betrayal in my own words. And then she said, "Anna, don't confront him yet. Make sure you have every detail. The evidence has to be airtight. When the time comes, you'll hit him with facts, not anger. You'll be untouchable." Her words were music to my ears, because that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want confrontation for the sake of emotion. I wanted precision. I wanted undeniable truth. I wanted him to feel the consequences of what he had done without me ever raising my voice. So I waited. I watched. I tested him. I asked small questions about the family finances during our casual calls, questions I already knew the answers to. He lied as expected. Effortlessly. Smoothly. The same charm and arrogance he had always used to get his way. But this time I wasn't naive. Every lie, every flippant comment, every attempt to charm or mislead me was another data point. Another brick in the case I was building. Another confirmation that I had underestimated no one, not anymore. By the second week, I had a full map of his theft. Every withdrawal, every transfer, every payment he had made using my money. Every property or asset he had purchased. Every online transaction. I wasn't just documenting, I was strategizing. And then I began to test his confidence to make sure he was predictable. I sent him a casual text about an account I had forgotten to mention, asking about a minor expense. He responded immediately, smooth and unbothered. That was the moment I realized he had no idea how much I knew. He had believed that I would always be the quiet sister, the one who absorbed mistakes, who excused betrayal, who stayed silent. He had believed my silence was weakness. But it wasn't weakness. It was patience. And patience had become my weapon. Then I sent the first official message. Calm, precise, professional. No anger, no screaming, no threats, just facts. Subject: unauthorized transfers. Body: it has come to my attention that several financial actions have been completed using my name without authorization, including wire transfers and account withdrawals totaling $250,000. Please respond within 7 days with repayment arrangements. Failure to respond will result in legal action. Immediately the calls came. The texts. The messages. Matthew's voice on the phone, pleading, attempting charm, trying guilt, trying intimidation. But I didn't answer. Every attempt he made, every lie, every manipulation confirmed one truth. He had counted on my silence for too long. And silence this time was my shield, my strategy, my power. I began preparing the next phase. I traced the property he had bought with my inheritance. He had assumed it was untouchable. He had assumed no one would question the paperwork. But a deeper search revealed that the transfer had never been properly completed. Legally, the property was still connected to my name. That realization gave me leverage. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub it in. I documented, prepared, and waited. Every step he had taken, every investment, every expense, every boast had created a trail. And I was following it all meticulously, quietly, with precision. The ledger I had built at home, detailing every betrayal, every forged signature, every transaction, was no longer just proof. It was a roadmap. And slowly each day the pieces of the strategy began to lock into place. I also realized something harder to quantify. The psychological advantage. Matthew had never imagined me as a threat. He had never imagined that I could process the betrayal, catalog it, and use it against him without emotion. That realization, when it came, would hit harder than any legal document, any restitution schedule, any demand letter. Because he had counted on my silence, and silence had now become inevitability. I didn't sleep much those nights. My apartment became a fortress of evidence. Every drawer contained files, every email was archived, every conversation, every casual remark, every joke about money, every brag about opportunity. I had it all saved, ready to become part of the truth that would dismantle him. And I learned something in that process. Betrayal isn't just about stolen money. It's about the theft of your security, your peace, your sense of future. And reclaiming that isn't just about legal action. It's about strategy, patience, and clarity. By the end of the third week, the moment of action arrived. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn him. I sent a single, measured email, documenting every unauthorized transfer, every forged signature, and the legal consequences he would face if restitution was not made. Then I waited. And the panic was instantaneous. He called. He texted. He begged. He tried to manipulate, to charm, to guilt. I didn't answer. Every frantic attempt became proof. Every lie became a tool. Every misstep confirmed his underestimation of me. Silence had turned into undeniable authority. I had become untouchable. I watched him unravel from a distance, carefully. Every account freeze, every lawyer's notice, every restitution plan. He realized he had no escape. The arrogance that had fueled his theft crumbled in the face of methodical preparation, precision, and undeniable evidence. And I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years: power. Not the power to hurt, not the power to yell, not the power to humiliate, but the power to reclaim my life, my inheritance, my peace, and my dignity. The betrayal had been profound, but it had also taught me something vital. Family isn't always safe. Love isn't always protective, and trust isn't always earned back. But silence, observation, preparation, and patience, those were mine to wield. And for the first time in my life, I realized that I could protect myself without losing myself. The morning I decided to move forward, I woke up early, coffee in hand, and opened my laptop. Every file, every note, Every ledger I had built over the past 3 weeks was spread across the screen. My hand hovered over the keyboard for a moment, not from hesitation, but from anticipation. Today everything changed. Matthew had underestimated me for decades. Today he would see the cost of that mistake. I drafted the first official letter, precise, professional, without a hint of personal vendetta. It detailed every unauthorized transaction, every forged signature, every diversion of funds. I CC'd my lawyer, Julia, and sent it with a calm note. All further action regarding these accounts will be handled legally. Please review and respond appropriately within 48 hours. The response came almost immediately. A single email. 2 words. We need to talk. I smiled. That wasn't a plea. It was panic disguised as dialogue, and I let it sit. I didn't reply right away. I waited, letting the anticipation build. Silence had always been my most effective weapon, and now in full force, it made the first tremors of fear in him tangible. 2 days later he showed up at my apartment. The doorbell rang, insistent, impatient, like someone used to getting what they wanted. I opened the door and found him there, perfectly dressed, hands shoved in his pockets, that same smug grin plastered on his face. But it was cracking. "Anna," he said, voice low, "we need to discuss this. Now." I didn't move. I didn't step aside. My expression remained neutral, calm, unreadable. He expected hesitation. He expected fear. He got neither. "Come in," I said finally, voice steady. "But know this. This isn't a negotiation. This is a conversation about restitution. Every step you've taken will be accounted for." He walked in cautiously as if entering enemy territory, and in a way he was. My apartment, my sanctuary, my command center, my war room, had become a courtroom, and I was both judge and jury. He sat on the sofa, avoiding my gaze, tapping his fingers nervously. I poured myself a cup of coffee, then set it down slowly on the counter. The ritual was deliberate, a reminder that I was calm, grounded, in control. "I didn't think it would be this big," he muttered finally. "You forged my name, Matthew. You took what wasn't yours. That's not a mistake. That's theft," I replied, my voice calm, measured. "And mistakes have consequences. You're going to fix this. Every dollar, every account, every transaction. You will make restitution, under supervision." He laughed, a nervous, hollow laugh. "Supervision? Anna, come on. It's family. Family." I froze for a fraction of a second. Then I shook my head. "Not anymore. You chose to betray me. Blood doesn't erase actions. Actions do. And your actions have consequences." He shifted, tried to charm, tried to plead, tried to explain himself away. Every excuse, every lie, every attempt to manipulate became another data point in my mind. Every word he spoke only reinforced the strategy one had built, the plan that had been slowly taking shape for weeks. I called Julia silently as he rambled on. She advised quietly over the phone, her voice a calm anchor. "Document. Do not engage emotionally. Let him expose himself. Everything he says will be evidence." I listened, nodding subtly, letting him believe he still had control. But control had long since shifted. He had no idea. Every word, every gesture, every defensive movement had already been noted, logged, and cross-referenced with the evidence I had collected. By the time he left, I would have a complete record of his admission. Over the next few days, the real dismantling began. I contacted the bank, showed them the forged signatures, and requested a freeze on all affected accounts. Julia handled the legal motions for restitution. I didn't speak to Matthew directly. I didn't engage with threats or anger. The law, the proof, and the meticulous preparation did all the work. Matthew called constantly, texted, messaged, emailed. Each time I forwarded everything to Julia. Nothing reached me personally. My silence was impenetrable. His panic was palpable. I could see it in the way he wrote, the way he tried to manipulate with guilt, with charm, with false urgency. None of it worked. Every attempt only made the legal case stronger. Then came the first meeting with the lawyer in the bank. Matthew had to appear face to face, and every lie he had ever told was meticulously countered with evidence. Every forged signature, every unauthorized withdrawal, every misstep was laid bare. I watched from the corner, quiet, controlled, almost invisible, but entirely in command. He tried to argue, tried to charm, tried to intimidate. It didn't matter. The proof was undeniable. The paper trail was meticulous. The law was on my side. The ledger I had built over weeks, filled with every small betrayal, every transaction, every lie became the instrument of justice. And I felt a thrill, not of cruelty but of liberation. When the meeting ended, Matthew looked at me, eyes wide, pale, broken in a way I had never seen before. He had believed I would stay silent, that I would absorb the theft, excuse the betrayal, forgive quietly. He had misjudged me. He had underestimated the quiet sister, the one who never made a scene. He had counted on my patience as weakness. And now he realized he had been wrong. Over the next week, restitution was set in motion. He was required to repay, under legal supervision, every penny taken. The accounts were corrected. The property, which he had assumed was untouchable, was legally secured in my name. He had to attend regular check-ins, sign documents acknowledging the theft, and face consequences for any further manipulation. It wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my life, my trust, my peace. Every step of the process reinforced a simple truth. I didn't need to yell, I didn't need to fight physically, I didn't need to hurt anyone. Preparation, strategy, and evidence were far more powerful than anger. Silence, observation, and patience had dismantled the entire illusion he had built. And then came the hardest part, the psychological aftermath. I had always absorbed others' mistakes, taken responsibility for their chaos, forgave too easily, stayed silent too long. But now the roles had reversed. I was untouchable. I had power not because I wanted revenge but because I had taken back what was mine, and I had done so without losing myself in anger or despair. Matthew tried to reach out after the restitution plan was in place. Apologies, explanations, promises. But I kept boundaries. I didn't engage personally. I let the legal and financial framework speak for itself. And slowly, over weeks, he learned accountability. He learned consequences. He learned that charm, lies, and manipulation couldn't get him everything anymore. I spent those weeks reflecting on the silence I had always kept, the patience I had always exercised, the intelligence I had always underestimated in myself. I realized the greatest betrayal had been the lesson I had absorbed my whole life. That love and family sometimes demand sacrifice, sometimes require forgiveness, sometimes ask for quiet endurance. But that didn't mean I had to allow myself to be stolen from. Not anymore. Finally, after everything was resolved, I sat in my apartment one quiet evening. The accounts were restored. The property secured. The legal motions concluded. My name, my life, my inheritance, my peace, fully reclaimed. I opened the ledger one last time, scrolling through the meticulous documentation of months of preparation, every transaction, every forged signature, every manipulation. And then I deleted it. Not out of loss, not out of regret, but out of release. Because in that moment I understood something vital. I didn't need to carry the weight of their choices, their mistakes, or their betrayals. Silence had served me. Patience had protected me. Strategy had reclaimed me. And for the first time in years I felt freedom. Pure, unencumbered, undisturbed freedom. I sent a simple message to my closest friends. It's done. I'm finally free. And for the first time in years I felt it fully. The quiet strength, the intelligence, the patience, the power of a life lived deliberately, consciously, strategically. Matthew learned lessons he would never forget. He learned that trust can be broken. He learned that consequences exist even within family. He learned that silence, once underestimated, could be deadly. And I learned the most important lesson of all. That I am enough, I am capable, and no one, not a sibling, not betrayal, not deception, can ever take that from me again. If you've ever been betrayed by someone close, if you've ever had your trust shattered, if someone has quietly stolen what you worked for, what would you do? Would you cry? Would you fight? Would you plan? Or would you let them continue believing silence equals weakness? I want you to think about that. Because here's the truth. It's not about revenge. It's not about hurting anyone. It's about standing up for yourself. It's about reclaiming the life that was quietly being stolen from you. It's about turning patience, strategy, and intelligence into power. And it's about finally breathing freely again, knowing that the weight of someone else's choices no longer rests on your shoulders. I poured myself a cup of tea that night, feeling the quiet hum of my apartment, the stillness that had once been my refuge now also my sanctuary. I realized that betrayal doesn't just teaches. It forces clarity, patience, and strength you never knew you had. And when you finally step into that strength, you're untouchable. Matthew would always be my brother. But now he was also a lesson. A reminder that power isn't loud. It isn't angry. It isn't vengeful. Power is precise. Power is patient. Power is knowing your worth, documenting your truth, and reclaiming what is yours. And in that I found freedom.